QR
put it.
code
Okay.
ตอนนี้เริ่มหรือยังคะมิว
Huh?
เริ่มได้เลยค่ะอาจารย์
ค่ะโอเคค่ะ Okay, good day everyone and welcome to the seminar series on sea nomads, marine knowledge and heritage in Western Austronesian history. This seminar series were supposed to be face-to-face seminar, but with COVID, we had to change into Zoom meeting with broadcast through Facebook Live through Social Research Institute, Chulalongkorn University Facebook. This is also based on the agreement on collaboration between French Research Institute, CNRS, and Chulalongkorn University organizations, two main organizations. One is Social Research Institute and Institute of Asian Studies. So we will have this series, which consists of 4 sessions, and we put the poster on the Facebook Live, so you'll be able to see the schedule. Let me briefly introduce our colleagues and speakers. And I'm actually on the move. I'm in the van, so probably after this, after the brief introduction, I'll turn off the camera and microphone, and I'll just follow on my tablet.
Okay.
So the first colleague is Professor Dr. Supang Jantawanit, who's the advisor to the Asian Research Center for Migration, Asian Studies Institute. She's an expert on migration, and she has a lot of work, research projects done about migration and migrants, and much of the issue has been turned into the policy, the national policy. The second colleague who will also be the speaker for today is Dr. Jacques Ivanoff. He's an anthropologist, and he is an expert on the Moken, and he wrote again several books on the Moken, as well as his recent interest in migration, joining research projects with Ajahn Supang as well. The third colleague, also the main speaker for today, is Dr. Cynthia Chou, who is the professor in anthropology in College of Liberal Arts and Science from University of Iowa in USA. Right now it's 7 p.m. her time, and actually for Jacques it's 2 a.m. So it's a sacrifice to be with us. Another colleague is Fabienne Valengal, who's a museologist at the National Museum of Natural History in Paris. She'll be joining us also, and she will have a separate session in our seminar.
She is my scientific and technical support.
Yes, very kind of her. And
Yes.
The last colleague, he doesn't appear because now he's in Myanmar, and probably the internet would allow him to come at a later time. Maxime Boutry, who's social anthropologist and independent consultant. Right now he's based in Burma, and he is also helping Jacques and Fabienne with Moken Alive Museum. So I would like to invite Ajahn Supang to say something about Asian Studies Institute and this collaboration. Thank you very much.
I think it was the internet was cut out a few hours ago, because I could speak with him a few hours ago, and that now nothing's appeared.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that it will be back by 9:30. I mean, the internet in
Yes,
Myanmar.
yes,
Yeah,
we hope
yeah.
so. So well,
Okay,
anyhow,
so-
whatever the constraints, we decided to go on because there will be either snow, either coup d'etat, either COVID. There is too many factors which would be easy to cancel our meeting, so we had to start it, even if we have to make it better after with the book or without that. But we strongly think we had to start it, whatever the situation, especially for the Burmese, even if they are not here, or if they cannot, we will speak about them or read the paper. But please go on.
Okay, so Hello again, and thank you very much for inviting me to be with the team. I'm a new face in terms of sea nomad studies, but I'm very interested in the topic, and I consult with the director of the Institute of Asian Studies at Chulalongkorn University to agree with the team to co-organize this series of webinar. At the Institute of Asian Studies, we have it is a research institute, and we have many projects on labor migration, on refugee, and on other aspects of Asian studies. We have many centers. For the one that I'm working with, it is the Asian Research Center for Migration. And this center will focus more on migrant or mobile people. And that's why our interests cover the sea nomads. Last year, I had the chance to accompany Puk Narumon to Phuket and observe at Rawai Beach, the Mokens who celebrated their annual meetings with their friends from other parts in Thailand, and it was very impressive. And after that, when I discussed with Jacques and Maxime and other colleagues, we agree that this should be a collaboration between Chula and CNRS and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in France. And at Chula, we have the Chulalongkorn University Social Research Institute as the focal point, and the Asian Studies will supporting for this project. And on the French side, we have Jacques and Maxime and Fabienne, and also Sean, who will join us later, I think. Okay, so I'm very enthusiastic to learn from all of you, and particularly to hear from Dr. Cynthia Chou, who is an anthropologist, and it will be very interesting to learn about the Moken from and other Austronesian groups from your studies. So thank you very much for this brief introduction that I can have. Now go back to Jacques. Okay, thank you.
I will just introduce the reason why we did this webinar. The first reason is, of course, the COVID. We cannot have the mobility we are paid to do. We cannot go to see each other and discuss or fight or whatever. We can do that. So instead, I said to the CNRS, which is paying our project, international project, that we will do webinar and book instead. So the project I sell in a bracket to the CNRS is, until we cannot see each other, we will connect through webinar. This is why we divided in 4 sessions in order to have the maximum of person who can join us. And I push a little bit, say that we have to make a book because we cannot see each other. So maybe there is some, discrepancy or misunderstanding or whatever. So I said we need a book after this webinar. So they agree because they, in fact, cannot disagree. So this is what we have the money left to make the book, which will be more or less the webinar, huh? And maybe I would add, I would like to add 1 or 2 persons. And in the same discussion with the director of the CNRS about mobility of international researcher like me, I said, we still have 2 years for this project. And I said, within these 2 years, we will gather a lot of information from a lot of people who are specialists on the Western Austronesian. And as far as I know, there is nothing who cover all the people, let's say the CGIPC into bracket again. And I would like to join in a book everybody who is concerned with this matter, to have like something strong and real in which everybody say what he had to say. Then we can discuss with the other people who are working with the Eastern CGIPC Austronesian, because there is always this Western Austronesian and Eastern Austronesian, and this endless discussion, yet they are the same, but not, they are not the same, and so on and so on. So once for all, I would like to have global perspective between, let's say, Rio and Mergui. Whatever the link we can find between us, either technology, mythology, language, or to find some strong evidence in anthropology, will go a little bit further than the archaeology, than the genetic and linguistic, because they are the three big well, research which has been done. And I think, and I saw some books we are taking this free archaeology and genetic and sometimes linguistic, but they don't know the field work. So, and that is very disappointing for me, because even if globalization, okay, make the COVID arrive, but strangely enough, the globalization sort of cut out every population. That means that the people from Rio, we don't know very well about them. Maybe you don't know so much about the Moken. There is not enough relation between us to exchange. And this is a big lack. And in fact, some others are trying to taking this place and to make something more, very strong, because there is hard evidence, like anthropology and archaeology. And what I found, some are wrong. I can tell you, I won't say that to them, of course, but I would like to have a book which can show our work, so they cannot say something that we already know or discuss, or which is already known. Well, this is my aim. So I told to the director of the CNRS that it is a good time, because of our immobility, to make one book for the webinar after it's finished, a paper of everybody, that will be okay, normal. And if we agree on some, let's say we find a link between everybody, either an historical link or something else, I would like to share with you my biggest idea and make another book. And the CNRS agreed to pay it for it, because they like the idea to rediscuss and make another paradigm. You will excuse my English at 2 o'clock in the morning, sorry. The paradigm we use are not good enough. And I say that because of the project we are doing now, which is very fruitful. And I find that my 30 years of research on the Moken still can go very further because we are doing this corpus, which I will explain you. And so we can go further, and there is way to study in anthropology with a new paradigm. And this new paradigm is first to rethink the participative work. The second thing is even the indigenous term, which does not fit me, because who is indigenous, we don't know if there is people before the Moken or the Suku or Buku. I don't know how you call them, because my father calls them Buku, but it's Suku. Chou, Suku, because my father wrote Buku. I will send you the letter, and the picture are very, very beautiful picture, an old picture, but he write Buku. Well, let's say Suku. And so there is indigenous that I wanted to rethink, participative, I will explain you. And the third thing, which is very important for me, it's the link and the crossover we must do between orality and, let's say, writing history. I have tried, I am an historian by formation, and after I made anthropology, so I know history very well, and I am an ethno-historian if you want, but I find very hard to discuss with historian because I have no written things. I have no data. So the historian, no, we can't do that. So they agree to work with me, but in very specific term. If you take the Mergui archipelago, for instance, there is absolutely no annals, there is no writing thing, there is nothing. What you have is Moken and Moken's story. So where are the annals? The annals are in the mind of the Moken. And the further we go in this mind of the Moken, the further we go in history. And there is cross where you can find, for instance, with tin mining, with the war, with things, you can find that there is history where the Moken were involved and the Moken also. So we can start on, some things which are real and more or less modern and try to get a little bit further to see exactly when this population arrived. Because what I suppose is the archaeologists want absolutely to say that these nomads are, let's say, few thousand years ago, 10,000 years ago, they want them to be, the first inhabitants, to make the rock painting and so on and so on. And I disagree because the method is not good enough. The field work is not good enough. They didn't do enough field work. In Burma, how can you write the link between Sigipsi and rock painting and other things with no field work? I have done field work there, and I can tell you it's very hard. So I don't know how they can do that. So it will be only, thinking and trying to get this and that is not good for me. So we have to be strong on that. That will be my second desire to make this book, but to rethink the paradigm of anthropology in order to work with historians, archaeologists on the same level. Voilà. So this is a big thing for me, this webinar for that. This is what I need Rio absolutely, because Rio is like a dream for me, even if I went there in '82. And I have shown some people which are seen Suku in Sumatra, but not sure. So yes, it's a dream to get Suku, and if everything go according to my plan, we will go to Rio. Huh? At Chansupong. The banana was good. Huh? We go to Rio.
We go to where?
Rio.
Rio, okay. Let's go together.
And then we go, of course, we have to go to Lampi. But for the moment, Burma is still closed, and really, even me, I cannot tell what will happen. It could be 2 days, 1 year, 2 years. I know Burma for 20 years. I have done a lot to enter this country, and I am exhausted with this dictatorship for 20 years. So I really don't know when it will open. So I was thinking to shift before to go to Lampi, where we try to build this museum, maybe go to Rio if Professor Chou agree to accompany us. And then we can go further north when we got some money. And now I have some, so why not to schedule something like that? Voila, this is a dream, but let's dream a little bit in this bad time. Voila, now I let Professor Chou to speak. And if you find your photo, we will be very pleased to see them.
Okay.
Where I am.
Okay,
I disappear. Okay.
Can you see the slide? Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
Yes, okay, that's okay.
Okay, shall I begin now?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Well, I would like to begin by thanking the webinar organizers for the immense effort to put together this wonderful global webinar. And it's truly not easy when so many different time zones have been coordinated. So thank you very, very much. Now, sea nomadism has been common in the waters of Southeast Asia for centuries. And until today, numerous widely scattered communities of sea nomads can be found across the region. However, current day policymakers are exerting immense pressures to change their lifestyle, yet their continued widespread distribution in the region bears testament to the proficiencies to push back against state intrusions. My focus on the Orang Suku Laut in the Riau archipelago of present-day Republic of Indonesia, which was formerly a part of the larger Malay world, addresses a key question posed by the webinar's organizers. What are the present strategies developed by sea nomads to maintain their identity, and what is their capacity for resilience? Riau has been targeted by Indonesian authorities for projects of modernization and development. And within this context, the Orang Suku Laut have been defined as an isolated and backward people who hinder progress. For the modern nation state, this backwardness is fundamentally a consequence of their lifestyle. Taking inspiration from the Deleuze and Guattari's treatise on nomadology and the concept of war machine, James Scott's anarchist history, and Jeffrey Benjamin's elucidation of being tribal in the Malay world as nomad inventions to ward off the state, this ethnographic study of the Orang Suku Laut examines their strategies to challenge statehood foundations. The war machine refers to a series of strategies that in their aggregation fabricate war via radical destabilization and deterritorialization of state policies. And strategies employed by the sea nomads are wide-ranging and include, for example, deploying the fear of black magic and supernatural powers to their mechanism of leadership. Lifestyle has been the distinguishing factor between the Orang Suku Laut and Malays. And Orang Suku Laut daily communication is often expressed by differentiation from others in the sense of us and they, such as Orang Suku Laut in comparison to Orang Darat or people of the land, or in saying, di sini tak ada orang lain, which means there are no strangers, that is, here are only we, or dia bukan orang lain, that is, he is not a stranger, that is, he is one of us. Such demarcations were not always negatively viewed. In pre-colonial Malay conception of the state, the Malay polity was in perpetual flux to be expanded and strengthened principally by the mobility of its people. Now, at the crux of this was the importance of state formation and state maintenance in the context of nomadic tribality. It was only in mid-20th century when European colonialists led to viewing the sea nomads as pirates and criminals, and the legacy of this rejection has persisted to this day. The total number of Orang Suku Laut is estimated at about 3,000 to 5,000 people, with approximately half of them still living as nomads, and the others have become house dwellers. Yet they sometimes return for days, weeks, or months, or seasonally to the boat-dwelling way of life. Conventional understandings of nomadic tribal societies are that they are primitive, segmentary societies in a primitive stage of development, acknowledging the authority of a chief that cannot understand the complexities of a state apparatus. My paper breaks with this postulate to ask the question, is it not the very intention of nomadic tribal societies to ward off the state that they supposedly do not understand? Being tribal, as noted by Benjamin, is not the passive condition of a whole group of people, but the active agency of individuals. In the same way, being a nomad stands for a pure becoming. Nomadology maps an ontology of movement. It expresses a way of thinking that is absent in the history of Western thought, and it denies the power of the state from occurring. Combating the state apparatus is about pure strategy premised on anonymity and a machine assemblage that is war without open confrontation to ward off constellations of the state apparatus. The thesis of the war machine draws attention to the ways the Orang Suku Laut use and apply nomadology and tribality to resist the state apparatus. A brief look at the strategies of relationship to space, kin solidarity, Christianity, and Chinese religion as resources for distance and modernity, the Ikut strategy and the strategy of doing and not doing provide ethnographic glimpses into their wide-ranging strategies to ward off the state. The Orang Suku Laut war machine relates to space in ways that opposes the state's relation to space. In Deleuze and Guattari's terminology, the sea is a smooth surface for the Orang Suku Laut, in contrast to the state's perception that is striated, space that is coded and counted in order for it to be occupied, taxed, monitored, and controlled. The Orang Suku Laut proceed altogether differently. For them, space is occupied without being counted. Theirs is a mobile existence that deterritorializes the notion of state formation. And their orally transmitted history from their ancestors relates that the Malay world came into being because of their seafaring activities. They question state-imposed coordinates that measure the sea. Now, they are aware of state borders and boundaries that crisscross the oceans. However, these are viewed as temporary constructed markers that alter, connoting the rise and the fall of different political realities. The scenarios of temporary Dutch and Japanese occupation do not supersede them as the rightful owners and custodians of the maritime world. For the Orang Suku Laut, the sea is an inalienable gift from the ancestors, and it cannot be sold or given away, or it would be a weakness in their identity and ability to survive in the present, let alone carry on into the future if they were to lose this inalienable gift of territories. The sea, as a gift of inalienable ancestral estates, is linked together as a network of interrelated kin territories. And their life force is embedded in the sea and transcends mortal life. So this fusion collapses distance in space-time so that the inalienable gift of ancestral oceanic estates carry the qualities of sacredness and constitute the social self in relation to the past and the future. And this is the capital stock of substance belonging to a family. So the Orang Suku Laut seascape is divided according to the exclusive stories that serve as collective title deeds to confirm which boat dwelling group was the first to discover the potential of that area or an area. Each group identifies within a network of collectively owned islands based on kinship ties. This network translates into spheres of sustenance to meet day-to-day needs and thus the ability to absolve reliance on the state. For example, one can sail to the island of another in this network of interrelated territories to harvest jellyfish, and then when it is the prawn season, the favor is returned to the kin to travel to their island for the catch. Now, there are no fixed sailing schedules and swift decisions can be made as to when to arrive or when to depart. Although customary sailing routes may be followed in going from one point to another, it differs from the function of a sedentary road. A sedentary road parcels out a closed space with designated directions to people. This is in contrast to the nomadic trajectory, which does the opposite. It distributes them in an open and indefinite space. Now, this creates a fluid situation whereby groups appear to outsiders, and especially to the state apparatus, to be confusing as they are constantly regrouping, reorganizing, and wandering, as well as spreading freely amongst the seas and the islands. For the Orang Suku Laut, a path is always between 2 points, but then in between, they enjoy autonomy and a direction of their own. And this opposes the strictly controlled, measured, and cadenced movement from one specified point to another as sanctioned by state apparatus. This opposition and tension appears at different moments and on different levels. The Orang Suku Laut are aware, the Orang Suku Laut know that sea cucumbers are trade commodities with very high economic worth. And so when they have a sizable amount of sea cucumbers, they know that higher profits can be reaped if they sell them directly to the Pasir Panjang butter trading station in Singapore. However, a valid passport is required to make this crossing because of border policing by immigration officers. Although the Orang Suku Laut do not possess passports, they know that they can ward off these controls by bribing the marine custom officers. And to contain this subversion, the state apparatus have at times been compelled to issue documents normally unavailable to civilians, permitting legitimate mobility for a limited time. So state-constructed borders and boundaries have not stopped the movements of the Orang Suku Laut completely. The Orang Suku Laut do not meet the visual condition of being observable or controllable from any one point in space external to them. The Orang Suku Laut war machine has a relation to families plus esprit de corps that differs from its relation to the state. It is not the public eminence of a family. It is not about a monopoly of power or of assuring local representation that determines its place in a state organism, but it is the reverse. It is the strength of their solidarity. Their network of interrelated territories based on kinship ties and their corresponding mobility within this network is what determines their eminence on a war body. The vertical movements of a network of families confuses the state apparatus. The confusion arises when all of a sudden a collective body could be advancing and then regrouping and reorganizing so that it is beyond the comprehension of the state apparatus to know what is going to happen next. Group solidarity within Orang Suku Laut community is attested by the expectations of sharing and helping amongst kin is not always premised on altruism. Now, embedded in the kin solidarity of sharing and helping is the knowledge and unwritten contract between the giver and the recipient that whatever is given must be reciprocated at some point in time in the future. And everyone profits by this system of sharing and helping. Now, this is not because it is thought right to do so, but because it is to one's advantage to do so. Schemers who are selfish, when they are discovered, they are edged out of the community's network from which they stand to profit. Now, their obligation to share and help is an insurance policy that makes the group more stable than they might otherwise be. And familial solidarity is one of the surest mechanisms to avoid reliance on the state apparatus for survival, and hence from becoming encoded within the state apparatus. In the Malay world today, the defining qualities of being Malay entail being Muslim, speaking Malay, and following the Malay customs. This has led to a Malay ranking system that classifies pure Malays to be first-class citizens versus those who are impure to be second-class citizens. Islam has been promoted as the axiom of progress and modernity. For many orang suku laut, joining the Islamic faith and Malay way of life would mean an abandonment of their cultural autonomy. In their understanding, Islam has 5 salient features: 5 daily prayers at specific times, the fasting month, celebrating the end of the fasting month, and specific food taboos. Now, all of these run counter to their nomadic terrain. For example, keeping a fixed schedule would make it impossible for their fishing activities, which happen day or night depending on the tides. The orang suku laut are aware that official Indonesian strategies to maintain modernity are framed within the country's motto, unity in diversity, and the national ideology of Pancasila, or the 5 moral principles. And the first directive is to proclaim belief in one supreme God. All Indonesian citizens have long been required to adhere to one of the state's recognized religions that includes Roman Catholic Christianity, Protestant Christianity, Buddhism, and Confucianism. While some orang suku laut have become Muslims, often in name only, many have rejected this path. They know that they can look to other huge worldwide religious formations to enjoy a large measure of autonomy from the organs of the state power. By identifying with Christianity or Chinese religion, they would appropriate alternative cultural mechanisms to adopt a religious identity at variance from the core state population of Muslims, whose culture they associate with their stigmatization. Christianity has thus become a resource ammunition in their war machine for them to reposition themselves for social mobilization and new group formations. During the course of my last fieldwork, Amos, an orang suku laut in Tiangwangkang Island, was already sharing ideas about starting up a network of Protestant Christian orang suku laut. There are also orang suku laut who have adopted Buddhism or Confucianism. The Chinese possess the reputation of being leaders of diverse money-making enterprises. They too represent an alternative way of becoming progressive and modern without becoming Muslims. Embedded in the declarations of adherence to Christianity, Chinese religion, or Islam is also the orang suku laut's employment of the ikut strategy, or the to-follow strategy, to fend off the state apparatus. The orang suku laut do not object to following different faiths or participating in the celebrations of their holy days. However, simultaneous to joining these celebrations, they use these dates to perform their own rituals not related to Islamic, Christian, or Buddhist beliefs. The ikut strategy, or the to-follow strategy, which looks for common ground, enables the orang suku laut to call upon different identities contextually to fence off outside attacks on what would otherwise be viewed as their obstinate impiety. What the orang suku laut do not do is just as significant a strategy to ward off state interference. Not doing, as much as learning to undo oneself, are critical movements of decoding. in the war machine to resist state capture of activity. Now, paper certificates are used by the state to authenticate one's identity, to give access to the rights and privileges, as well as the obligations of citizenship. Non-registration of births, deaths, marriages, and divorces are effective ways of state evasion. Even when certificates are issued, the Orang Suku Laut are laissez-faire about these pieces of paper and maintain that the documents easily fall out of their boats into the sea. The absence of documentation conveniently serves for one to undo, change, or take on multiple identities. In this anarchy of identity that frustrates the state, taking an inventory of the Orang Suku Laut becomes impossible. Activities that would require the Orang Suku Laut to reside for long periods in the same place are also avoided. To be able to move or change locations swiftly, the Orang Suku Laut limit their material possessions. Hence, they avoid net fishing because to acquire nets would obligate them to the Chinese middlemen who provide these nets at specific locations. This not doing of net fishing is thus an active decision to protect their freedom of movement and to retain their distinctive identity. In conclusion, what I want to say is that what's proper to Orang Suku Laut is war without battle lines, with neither confrontation or retreat. And they comprise various groups with fluid contours whose position is very ambiguous to the state. And their war machine, which is exterior to the state apparatus and distinct from its controlling forces, has three aspects: a spatio-geographic aspect, movement, and a creative line of flight. And they overturn structures of organization and domination in the state apparatus to create something else. So their resistance is about the art of not being governed. It is about living the way that they want to. Thank you.
Very good. I was very happy to hear what you said. Exactly what I want to hear. I have thousands of questions, so I won't ask all of them. One thing is for certain, is at least 80% of what you said, you can apply it to the Moken. Of course, there is a geographical, circumstantial, and few things. The first thing I would like to ask is, in fact, they have, in order to survive, being 2,000, if I understand well, is 2,000 people, huh? And
3 to 5,000, about.
Well, 2 to 5,000. In a crowded surrounding or not?
No. So it's very difficult to get the correct estimates, of the Orang Suku Laut, as I explained, because of their mobility and lack of registration and documents. One thing about them is that they are spaced out. So there is a network of territories, and they are spaced out, in different islands. And also when they travel in their boats, it can be either, as individual boats or as a sort of family, and they can regroup and
like the Moken, okay.
So if a place becomes, if there are too many people in a single place and the resources there are being over-harvested, they can always quickly reorganize and, move somewhere else.
So is there any interaction with other population there?
Who? With the
Malay, Singaporean, or whoever?
Right. Yes, there's definitely has to be interaction, of some sort, because first of all, most of the fish that they catch is, of course, for their own daily needs. But then they also bring it to the islands where there are Chinese middlemen, where they sell the catch to. So there's interaction.
What we call with okay.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and with the Tauke to, interact with that. In terms of the Malays, yes, there is some interaction too, because, sometimes they may need to go buy something from the Malays and all. They would never, they would engage in interactions of, buying and selling with the Malays, but they are very careful not to just accept any kind of drink or food from the from the Malays, and likewise the Malays are very fearful of accepting it from them because of the fear of black magic, which I didn't have time, which I'm still working on, and so I didn't mention it in this paper. But I hope that if I have a chance to write it up, to include that this whole spirit of being very fearful of black magic is actually a way in which it also gives them the power of autonomy.
A specific question is there any intermarriage? Marriage with
Yes.
Malay or Chinese?
Yeah.
Or?
So there is some intermarriage, okay, not much. And that's because, the Orang Suku Laut is seen as being backward and uncivilized people. So if there is intermarriage, people would often say that, oh, it's because, they've been bewitched by the black magic and that they are actually going down in social status. So when I started to do my field work amongst the Orang Suku Laut, I was getting a lot of cautions from the Malay as well as the Chinese communities that, oh my goodness, they're going to bewitch you and then you're going to forget about everything and you're going to end up marrying them, and that would be the end of everything and you will fall in social status and all of that.
The same advice. And so I have, if I understand well, they live in boats, it's a family, and then they live in extended family within 10 boats, and they go around like this, and they reunite, reunite, I cannot pronounce it. So they gather together at once a year to celebrate any rituals or anything, or they always scatter around and share the resources between them?
Mm-hmm. Well, as I said, some of them are living, on coastal houses, and some of them are living in between, the sea and the coastal houses, and some of them are still, very, very nomadic. But whatever it is, whether they have sort of partially moved to land or not, they still return to their boats. And so they can either go out in individual boats and then go back, to their houses on the coastal areas, or they can actually, go out, for long periods of time. And as soon as a child is able to row, so the child could be 8 years old or 9 years old, right? But as soon as the child is able to row, the child will be given his own or her own boat. So when that happens, when a family moves, you move a couple of boats, because it could be like grandma and grandpa in one boat, father and mother in one boat, and then other children who are able to row is another boat. So they sort of move in a fleet. And that's why for an outsider, when you see that, you sometimes can be very frightened. It's like, oh my goodness, it's a whole group that's sort of approaching and cannot understand what's going on. As to gathering, I've read, other literature on sea nomads where sometimes there are celebrations that they gather like once a year. With the Orang Suku Laut that I have worked with, I have not noticed, any kind of like 1 year ritual of once a year that is celebrated. But what I have noticed is that for those who are Christians, during Christmas time, okay, they always try to go to the island of Tiang Wang Kang, and that's because there is a Christian mission there, and they know that during Christmas time, the Christian missionaries would be giving out good food, and
they can provide it. They can play the game very well. Yes, that's a Moken. Yeah, I have two questions. I have thousands of questions, but I want to ask them two. Last one. One is from what I hear from your expose is they had to have a strong ideology to survive in a kind of environment with so few people. And with this kind of ideology that you express very well, I have the same with the Moken, which I define like non-violence, non-accumulation, and forbidden of something. And with a few ideological things, if this ideology is respected, they can adapt to everything. They can be Islam if they need it, Christian if they need it, and so this ideology is very deep and very profound. This is the reason why so few people like the Moken or the Tukulaot could resist so strong people, because like you said, even for the Moken, the first description of the Moken was by a commissioner in 1826 saying that he never see so backward people and so much poverty, and it's an awful thing to see, and they will disappear. And you find that for 200 years, the same thing, same thing, same thing, same thing. They resist Islam, they resist Christianity, they resist Buddhism, but they integrate the system. They don't oppose nothing. But for instance, for Islam, they accept, the turban, they accept the way they think, but they don't believe in one God. Like for the Christian, they accept some Jesus Christ story, but they put them in their own story and so on and so on. In fact, they take out the main thing that meant the one God, and they accept everything else. And so when you see them from when a Christian missionary came them, they say, oh, but they are very ready to be Christian. Yes, that's 200 years and nothing happened. 40 have been Christianism. They cannot be. So this strong ideology is the way that leads me to think that they should have something very deep in their mind. Either they know it, either it's a collective memory or the interaction during the 1,000 years of migration or whatever. But without the strong ideology, that means they have a very habits of interaction with people. So yes, there is a lot of interaction, and there is another thing that this ideology first. I don't know if you can name it another one. This non-violence and non-accumulation, you eat day by day. This is why there is a notch out of the Moken, the boat. You have, you eat in the morning and then you go on the toilet in the evening, nothing else. So you depends of the nature which go on. But under this ideology, you have strategy. The strategy in order to survive on daily life. For instance, there is one I found in the 2002, you wrote with Benjamin, the dissimulation. Dissimulation, yeah, I have seen it. I have seen the military wanted to put them all together in a place, and then everybody scatter and they disappear. And because I have I can smell where the Moken are going, because 800 islands, it's not easy. But I find them, and there were 48 boats. I never saw so much boat because they were fleeing the military. There is a limit which the resources is not enough. There is a problem, they cannot live together. They divide the archipelago. Suddenly something is cut and everybody just explode. That means the society just explode. even children are abandoned, but they are recuperated by some other people, and then everything is a mess. But everything is get back in 2 or 3 years. Even the military, for 40 years of dictatorship in the archipelago, could not settle them down. The Christianity could not settle them for 2,000 years. So this deep opposition, but adaptation and what resiliency now means they have a very, I don't know the term in English, I call it besace. Besace is a big bag where you can put everything in it. That means all the interaction they have with other people, either it could be technical knowledge for the boat, it could be they can plant rice if they need it, they can eat tuber. They would tell you that they will die if there is no rice. That's not true. The rice of the Moken are tubers. But they will say we need rice because rice is, if you eat rice, you are not a savage. So they eat rice. So there is a lot of strategy. Another one is what I call the pivot. Is that English? That means they show the people what they want to see. And they are always moving towards an island, and they show this part of this, and they go. So you always see what you want to see, and what they want the other people to see is the lowest part of themselves. They are dirty, they are poor, they are nothing to eat. Yes. They will agree on everything. Yes. Never no, never oppose, never oppose. So this strategy is an ideology means to me that yes, it can be linked to this 1,000 years of migration and adaptation, and you know, they collect and they somehow they keep it in their mind. With the Moken, it's what we are working on. It's with their epics and story and mythology, which we have hours, if not thousands of them. And everybody say that for 200 years that they have nothing to say. The only thing they can do is boat. Well, that's the only interesting thing. In fact, we found there is hundreds of hours, even in Malay. They have the Malay historical record of war. I don't know which one, because I'm not aware of the geography of Malaysia, but they recall war between a kingdom in Malaysia, and they are told in Malay. That means I have seen some Malay from Malaysia coming to see the Moken to hear story by the Moken. I record them, I translate them. So what kind of Malay it is, I don't know. They have another kind of Malay which is used for the rituals, and these rituals, saying in praying in Malay, it's another dialect of Malay, which I can understand because it's close to Malay, but it links them to the Malay from the littoral, that means to the fisherman. So they play like they were, let's say a few hundreds ago, when there was no island and they were obliged to fish. So it's like a kind of link to their past, when they were not still nomad on their boat and living like this. So there is a strong link up to Malaysia. This is for me, there is a terra incognita in this Sigipsi. I call them like a littoral civilization. That means between northern Malaysia, today Malaysia, and Singapore, except the BCC, I have no idea of how many Sigipsi or Ankwala or whatever you call them. Is there any? Or do you know somebody who work on that? Because this part between BCC and Langkawi.
Yeah, so far I haven't seen anybody who sort of studied, whether there are links between the different sort of groups
This
of
is this
sea
missing link,
nomads.
which is a very.
Yeah.
We should do at 30 years. I say that I will go. But I made people basically come to see the Moken. And what is very, very strange, you put a Moken, a Moklen, a Nuraklawoy, and a BCC. They call them BCC, I will not say 100% sure. They can speak absolutely no problem. And they all recognize that the Moken are the higher level of sea gypsy. They won't say they are the best. They said, as a sea gypsy, you are the best because you hunt, you don't fish. And hunting, that's another problem for me. That means they live on boat for, not now, but when I was younger, they live on boat for 8 months and they don't fish. They spear, they harpoon, they hunt, and they hunt on land as well. They are sea hunters. They are not fishermen. They refuse to fish. And now they have to. This is their main problem. So this ideology make me think there is a link between your Orang Suku Laut, the Moken. They have the same strategy, the same ideology, the same number of people on the same area, the same people, the Toke, because they need somebody to protect them. Yes, they exchange. A lot of people want to suppress this Toke, but no, because this, of course, they in-debt them, they have a lot of debt, but they don't care. What they want that the Toke protect them. That's all. They've got some liberty because if you have a strong middleman, you are more free. Because before, as you say, there is slavery, there is a slave hunter, there is razzia, there is a lot of things, and they were in danger all the time. And this middleman was a kind of protection. So for me, it's only opening with the external people is through this economic exchange and through strategy who make things you are the lower person in the world, so nobody take care of you. Well, that the military told me in the year 2000, when I first go in Burma, I said, I asked to the military, but what about the Moken? They say, well, what about them? They have nothing. Well, we even cannot steal. So, well, Moken, well, we're Moken, let's go. And they play very good this way. So this means they are a very strong link. I think all this, I think they are linked by the same fundamental ideology, which it's a migration pulsation. Do you know, roughly speaking, when the Orang Laut Suku arrive? Is there any trace of?
As to when they arrived in the region? No, I don't have. I don't have data on. They don't talk about specific dates, and I don't have any data on that. But what they do is that they have stories, oral stories as to when they, for example, why and when did they split from the Muslim Malays so that, the Muslim Malays are land dwelling and why they are sea dwelling. And what is quite interesting in some of these stories is that I think, there are some similarities sometimes with other groups of sea nomads in the region as to why they are sea dwelling versus, land dwelling. So that's actually another very interesting thing to explore to these stories that they have.
So you record there is story on meat, and there is a lot, and which is are recorded or translated, or?
No, so these stories are orally told. So you have to be an ethnographer to go to the field to collect these stories from them. It's not written down.
Nobody collect them?
No, unless people like you and me who go to
You
the
have to collect them
yeah.
because this is the only this. I have my biggest problem is I know that the story because the Malay themselves go to the Moken to have their own war history and for the tin mining for a lot of things the Moken know. Even if we are not there, they know. They have a kind of memory. The Moken themselves are involved in the pagoda of all the Southern Buddhism on the 10th month, and they play a game in the ceremony. That means they always involved in every field. For me, it's like a sharing of the territory. That means, okay, you are nomad, you are the first inhabitant, we respect that. First inhabitant in Asia is very important, so we let you, but in a lower position. So they have a position in Buddhism, they have a position with the Muslim. I know a shaman who was a Muslim, and so there is no interdiction for a Muslim to be a Moken, no problem, etc., etc. So the only thing is knowing that there is hundreds of hours of Malay story, which name and place, I am sure we can record some place in reality. I have done that. Somebody in the webinar will talk about the Moken and their interaction linguistically with the other side, because there were slavery and the Trans-Isthmian route, so they go from west to east, so there is a movement there for slavery. But we should do the same, because I am sure that the Orang Laos have a link together, let's say a collective memory of something. I don't know what, but something should stick them together. You cannot resist 2,000 people there for how many years they have been there? Few centuries, you will say, roughly speaking.
I think longer than that. Yeah. Probably longer than that.
Longer than that. Huh?
Yeah.
I always say 16th century, but I don't know why. No, before that, you will say?
I would say before
No,
that.
just between us, it will not be right. I say 16th century, I don't write it.
Yeah, I can't find a specific century, but I think it would be before that too.
Yeah. So it will be interesting. And the last thing, and I will stop there because the other people will say, you are talking
Jacques?
about yeah, last question, finish.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, I just would like to join the conversation on the
yes,
date
please,
that they are in the
just
region.
last thing, you refer to the nomad and the fisher on the coast. That remind me the binomial system of Clifford Sather. I don't know if you know this system that Clifford say. He said, if there is nomad on the water, there is it's an obligation. You have a village on the littoral so they can exchange and have a safeguard there. And I stop there, please, Achan.
No, I would like to continue. I agree with Cynthia that maybe they are there something like 400 or 500 years ago, because the name of the places in southern Myanmar, for example, the name Tenasserim, or in Thai we call it Tanau Sri, and I try to find the meaning why that name exists. And I asked my Burmese friend, and they said that there is no meaning because in Myanmar they call it Tanintayi, right? Tanintayi has no meaning. But when I look at the word Tanau Si, Tanok in Xenomad's language, Tanok means the land, okay, and Sri means the betel nut. So
Burmese.
Tanau, yeah.
Tanau means Burmese and Sri means
the betel nut.
lot of things.
I don't know, but Tanok is for the land. That's the local term. So that means this is the land of the betel nut and betel leaf, and very old, dating back to Ayutthaya period.
Yes.
That we use this name.
This
So
is why I call Tanao Sri the problem, because Sri could be a lot of things. Sri could be also linked to the Pali. Sri means shining, and this is what I heard.
yes, yes. Sri come from Sire. I don't know.
Maybe
Which means
why I choose this name, because yes, it could be better. Yes, it could be shining divinity. It should be things. But Tanao, really, for it's Burmese for the Moken. Sure. So I think Tanao Sri could be a nice mixture between Hindu maybe, or even better not land. Who knows? Yes.
Yeah. So that's my remark about how long they have been there.
This is a main. The main problem of the anthropologist is we know a lot, but we are not good enough at linguistics. That means we should know Pali and Burmese, and we cannot. And after archaeology, we should know a lot of things. We should know everything. At the time, when Condominat was alive, we can do everything we want. We ask an archaeologist, we have one. We want to. We have Audricourt, we have this, we have that. You have everything, everybody you want. But now, no more. And so it's very difficult, for instance, to find a linguist. That's why I'm very happy there is a linguist in your university who work on the Very, very interesting. And I make for him a list. I include in the corpus world list to work with him on that.
Okay.
Because I want to find the real truth, because I am tired of all these linguists who come to see the Moken and Moklen and who go after 2 months and they say that we find 5% of Mon. Yeah, so what? I can tell you have 10% of Moken in Thai. It's no meaning. This 50% is Malay. That's it. It's a Malay language. They don't look after. They only want to find what they want to find. They are not real research.
Okay.
There is
yes, I would like to ask a question to Cynthia, and I was wondering, and I wrote it in the conversation. Was Moken, they built poles during the ritual of the off season, and I was wondering if if there is any poles built by I don't know how to pronounce the name of the orang. Just what kind? How is the ritual? Do they build? Do they cut trees?
Right. Well, I haven't, in the Orang Suku Laut communities that I've worked in, I have not noticed them building any poles or lubang, as you say, during the off-season time. Usually if it's their, off-season time, they could be constructing their fishing spears, out of, just wood and all, but it's for any sort of rituals that you are sort of referring to here. One other thing that they do sometimes when it's the off-season for some of the Orang Suku Laut is that they engage in the charcoal industry. So they actually, cut down, like the mangrove swamps, and then get into sort of charcoal for export purposes. That's what I've.
Sorry. So okay. Sorry.
Yeah, they do have rituals, but not, but their rituals are not. I mean, the rituals are like, maybe making prestations to spirits and things like that, but it does not involve, having to build poles and all of that.
Okay, so there's, and do they have their rituals always at the same place, and or do they move, or how do they?
Okay, so their rituals there are for them, in the seascape, they would identify certain spots as belonging to spirits, okay, and usually these would be places with jutting out rocks, which is really interesting. So, jutting out rocks, and usually when one is approaching those places with jutting out rocks, the ritual is that everybody in the boat must keep absolutely quiet. You must look forward and you cannot look backwards. And I think it's a sort of, in a way, it's a sort of safety measure. And that is also because when it's high tide, these rocks actually get covered by the seawater. So you actually cannot see, you could actually be, sailing into danger, but they know where it is. And so the quietness, I think, is in a way is to be very cautious about it. And they could put, food crustaceans onto the rocks of these places. And then on certain coastal areas, they could say that, oh, this belongs to the spirit Topek Gong, which is a Chinese spirit, or this belongs, to some other spirit and things like that. So there are some places where it could be, or sometimes they also get in their dreams, where they would find a spirit, maybe perhaps of a dead ancestor or so, giving them directions to feed them. And sometimes they could even be told where sort of to feed them at these particular spots. But there are definitely, in the seascape areas where they say this is sacred ground or this is not sacred ground.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
I mean, they have a knowledge of all the surrounding, and every place is known for a story or for something. Here you have to take care of this, here you take care of that, and this and that. Everything is knowledgeable. That's a knowledge, a basic knowledge. They know they have to include the ritual and the world beyond and the resource they collect. It's a mean also to separate the population. And this is what we are trying to do, in fact, with our project is, I am going to my project slowly now, is trying to stop to divide what we, because this is our conception of working and making classification and binary classification. The Moken don't work like this. The world doesn't work like this. It's one word, and this one word is not divided. It's a whole word which have its own autonomy that you cannot see. I remember that I asked a question to people saying about the rocks that you cannot see. I was asking a Moken for the boat and this part of the boat, blah, blah, blah. And he showed me the place. This is the mouth, blah, blah, this is the body, so you cannot accumulate, it's not to die, and so on and so on. And I said, yeah, but how can you see if there is a rock or something? And he looked at me like if I was a stupid... But he said, but there is eyes. We don't have to look. The boat have its eyes. That means in their mind, in fact, it's mixed. The boat have eyes like all the boat, but the eyes of the boat of the Moken were under. So they say they don't have to care. What happened, the boat will see it itself. But in fact, they know every place, everywhere, and the boat is designed to go in place where the other boat cannot go. And they know, of course, all of the dangerous place. So, this non-binary division of world beyond and knowledge, which can be used for mapping, and we try to do that, it's the same. For instance, there is, but to know that, the problem is they will never tell you. You have to find it more or less, and then they give you the information. That's why it's very long. The process is very long. I was lucky to have this 70 years with my father of study, so I can have a look on the long time and the long term and see how things work in their mind. I don't say I can read their mind, but sometimes I can feel how they look at their work, because Fabienne, who wants to make a museum, which I let her talk about that topic later, because it's very difficult to know what to show, what not to show. It's a big question. But she asked me, what is the Moken vision of the world? What a question, as a museologist. Huh? So I start to think a lot of what the vision, a global vision for the Moken and in a museum. So, you know, I go deeper and deeper. I reread my own notes and I find a new meaning at what I've wrote, because I take my note in Moken after a while. And in fact, I find myself that at the time when I was making my PhD and my postdoctoral and so on, I was very inclined to make a model, you know, a very nice model with the kinship and everything, religion and blah, blah, blah. So I was so focused on bringing a model that will work on, let's say, the Western intellectual milieu, that I forgot some distinction that in one word could have two meaning or three meaning. And I spoke now about linguistic dissimulation because I discover with this new project, which involve a deeper knowledge of their own mind, that the word themselves are used to they can give you a word, and this word will have three meaning. And so it's up to you to be, they will never say no. Is this three meaning? You say, you will say that. They say, yes, of course. And then 2 months after, you say, no, it's absolutely not that. So it's very difficult. You have to really to be close to them. This is the change of this project is having all this literature, oral literature, all this knowledge, all this work done, give me a tremendous amount of data and works which I have not finished to treat. And I find that even for my thesis, where I translate and I analyze maybe 500 and word to word, I made word to word 500 pages of their myth, the principal myth, and how they organize society within the myth. I understand that already, all the work, but I didn't understand the strong ideology behind that. I didn't understand how the nature and the Moken works together, how the resources are shared and are linked and marked, and they are landmark in the archipelago. So how do you make this vision, this global vision to have a museum? Well, we decide to make this project. So there is a museum keep going on, and I have to, we make an inventory in order to make a corpus, the first thing. So I rethink and I re-look at what I found, and I miss a lot of things. So that's incredible that I am not claiming that I'm the best. I have 70 years, my father is died there. So I have some respect there because the Asian, you know, the son going with his father's trace, they like that, and the Moken give me their thing. So I was more lucky that other thing. But in fact, this is what I want to change the paradigm of anthropology, because I have the chance of having 70 years of works by many people, not only me. And now I have a team. We decided with this team that I will not be the one who give the lead of the information. I will be the one who provide the information needed by the other. So I will not be the big leader and everything is true because that's me. No, that will be exchange each time. The museum needs to have a vision. You know, this one needs that, so I will translate for them. The movie wants this, and so on and so on. So I am like a transmission. I like, and I find out that the Moken asked me to be the transmission man. They never use the word, for instance, we give you that story, we will tell you that story. No, when I record and I listen to this story, you say, please transmit this in your word. Our words go from there to there. After, we don't know what's happened. We know things are changing, so we give it to you. But it has to have some feedback to us. So it was a kind of exchange. It took time for me to understand that I was involved in an exchange, and they gave me all these materials, which was for 200 years. I don't know how many anthropologists came there, and they came with nothing, no story, nothing at all. And I have 100, maybe one too much to translate, and even so what to do with all this? We try to organize and to have this vision. So we try first how you deal with how you 800 islands, 500 kilometers, and 3,000 people. That's why I think to your Sukula, it's only 3,000 people, which are dealing with 800 islands. How they can manage such a huge countryside. You know, it's very, so I said we will go from north to south. I will show you if we have time on the PowerPoint. And we go by toponym because each word, each beach, each point, each rock, everything is known and is named. And I wonder that do everybody, the Moken know that? They know, all of them know all the place of the whole archipelago, even the young one. So there is a way of transmission who's still there and is very active. So I find there was a kind of, it's not a ritual, it's a practice, which means that the young men, before being married, there is what we call the instability before being married. They go on the archipelago to see their cousin, their see, and see. It's a way of have a knowledge of the whole archipelago. So each place you stop, you can ask the people, what is the name? Toponym. The toponym is either a name of ancestor, a divinity, somewhere or something happened. There is a story behind it. There is always something. So, and it's very often linked to the resources. So you can divide the archipelago within the toponym and all the story we have. And I notice another thing. All this story we get with the toponym, it takes a month to do that, and we have 600. Most of them are linked to the mythology we recorded. That means we have mythology, which are the main thing above them, and then you have on the land the landmark. It could be the spirit pole, it could be a forbidden food, it could be something, but everywhere there is landmark. That means this environment is completely dominated by the Moken. And the Burmese recognize that. And the first time the Burmese came as fishermen, their interaction with the Moken was very good. They were intermarriage very well. they helped together, but it was 10,000, 20,000, so it was all right. And the second wave was 100,000, and they destroyed everything. That's why the boat disappeared, because the Burmese take out everything on that the Moken collect, the shell and so on. So they have to, their boat was not useful anymore, so they have to change and to adapt. But it was a good lesson, because I always say that the boat is the main thing of the Moken, because it's very exotic, it's beautiful to see this boat notch out, it's a human body, which is respected, and there is a lot of things in the story of each line have a story between the divinity and so on. But when the boat disappeared, nothing really changed. So the boat was not so important. It was important because it was a specific way to make economic exchange with the Tokay. They make a seashell, a sea cucumber, and whatever they exchange. But when it was finished, they have to go to fish, squid like the other one, but they change it. In 5 years, we were there. We have seen the last boat. Well, in 5 years, the whole archipelago decided it's absolutely incredible. 500 kilometers if you count Thailand, that means 600-700 kilometers, all the boats disappear. No more boat, no more traditional boat. And they all go in Thailand, they adapt with tourism very well. In Burma, they go to fishery, and everything they change. But what did not change is the relationship with the nature. And we find that they were more, even themselves, finished by told me, we are not Si Gipsy, Orang Laut, we are Orang Polau. We are men of the island, not men of the sea. And after you go, you take this word, and the sea in Moken means is Tao. Tao means outside. Not unknown, outside, go outside. This is Tao. And you know, it's not considered as the inside, which is the Kotan, the forest, where the women go collecting and where there is tuber and when you can hunting and so on. So they consider themselves as Orang Polau. So finally, I have to change my whole vision, and all the things we do with this corpus, because now that's 70 years. So you can imagine, let's say 700 hours of story, 50,000 diameter of picture, 1,000 of notebooks, movie, hundreds of hours, too much. So
Jacques?
we have to do a corpus.
Are you going to share your PowerPoint?
Yeah, that would be good.
Yes, and I finish with that. I want to tell you, if you need to discuss with population and to know exactly what is the vision of the world, you have to discuss with them, not equal to equal, but the Moken needs to know what to do with these 70 years of knowledge. Maybe they wanted to forget in order to adapt, and everything will disappear and no museum. But we have to discuss. So now we make the corpus, and the idea is to put the Moken and us discussing this corpus. Well, at the same level. They need it, we need it to understand what will we do with that. This is what we are trying to do with this project. And this is a huge project. So I stop now and I show you some picture, because you must be rewarded.
Je partage. No, I will be in charge of the PowerPoint. Okay, so I will share the computer. Là. Hop.
Donne-moi.
Okay, I open it first, and then.
Feeling your machine go slowly.
Eh ben, voilà. Et I share. Sorry.
Pascal Soupang, j'ai trop parlé encore. Hein. Voilà.
Sorry.
Voilà. Okay. Tu les mets une par une là? Ou c'est moi qui fais?
C'est moi, hein, de toute façon, t'as pas la main là.
Bah, change alors. Change la première.
Could you
Voilà.
please make it bigger?
Ah?
Please make it bigger.
OK. Alors,
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. So here you see the first picture of the Moken taken in 1894. Ikotong, that's the first. You can see the Indian. When I show something, you see it or not?
Yes,
no,
yes.
no, it's me. C'est moi qui.
You see the the white is an Indian. It's an employee. It's a fonctionnaire, comment on dit ça? A civil servant in charge of the sea in Kotong, and it was in the 19th century. So this is the Moken at that time. You see, in fact, this is what they discovered. And here, well, you have the map, but you know that. Ready, go on.
The movie.
So this is my father went there in Myanmar in 1957, and he made a movie, and there is also document. So this is the movie. So you have the most traditional and exotic. The movie is not good because it's a copy, but it's a movie. It's very nice, and so you can see the notch out boat, which shows the you see the mouth, and then the anus, because you cannot eat you can eat only what you find today, which is linked to story, which links all the social structure, even the kinship. Voilà. So it's a nuclear family on each boat, and you have an extended family roaming around a certain territory, and the territory are shared between all the subgroups. There is more or less 5 or 8 subgroups, and they divided the archipelago according to the resources. Voilà, so so you see the biggest problem to the integration for the Myanmar was they have no clothes, because they are recognized in Myanmar as a, Myanmar has a 135 recognized population. The Rohingyas are not of them, but the Moken, yes, maybe they are 3,000, but they are recognized as a national citizen because they helped during the Second World War when the Japanese take Lower Burma. The Moken were there, and they indicate where the boat was to the English. So they were included in the citizenship of Burma. This is the sea slug that they can make. Ouais, vas-y, passe, parce que sinon on va y passer la nuit.
Non, mais il est pas.
The sea slug was the main items to be exchanging.
Almost finished.
This is the pole. Well, you see voilà, this is the last. We have seen the last sailing boat.
Yeah.
Okay, but you see this. Ouais, voilà. This is well, non, reviens. Retourne sur la bateau. Voilà. This is a new boat with everything. This photo was taken in 1974. This is the traditional boat with everything. Vas-y. Alors, the building is very complicated. I wrote a book on that. I will send it to you. It's too complicated to visit. And you can see that, non, reviens. That's why I call a symbolic technology, because you can see the notch out boat where the man is standing. The notch out is, of course, the mouth of the boat, but it can be useful. So the Moken always play like this. Why do you do that? Oh, but because it's very easy to climb. But in fact, there is another reason. There is no separation. like I tell you, for the environment, for everything. So they are diverse. Okay. Same. So this is very important. But turtle, for instance, they have a special relationship with turtle, dugong, and whale. Whale are the shaman who are dead. The dolphin are the assistant of the shaman, and the turtle are the daughter or the wife. And the Moken harpoon them and eat them for the ritual. But the problem is the writing of the Moken is on the carapace, how you say that, Professor? The shell of the turtle is what the drawing of the shell of the turtle is a Moken writing. So they eat, in fact, it's a kind of social anthropophagy to keep it instead. So they cannot read, they refuse to go to school. Everybody wants them to go to school, they refuse it. So they eat their own scripture and they don't want to be in another scripture. But anyhow, they need some place to express their world beyond the representation. For instance, this is my book. And they design, you know, they draw a sirene, a mermaid, and on the land, or you can see a mermaid also, but they will never write, can draw everywhere, can do, but never draw, never write. Bon, you can see the evolution. Well, now you have no more. This is, at my time, I would say, down, the picture down. I show that to explain to the people who want to put them at school, at work. I said, yes, they are very unfortunate, these poor children. This is happiness. But now they cannot be in where they own boat because there is no more resources to be collected. So they have to adapt. So there is one boat still who go with all these little boats to fish squid. And this is the actual situation. And this is a very bad situation for them. It's terrible because fishing is not, it's a forbidden thing. So it's a woman who go for fishing. And normally it's men who are going to the sea. So everything is mixed up for the moment. Ready? You see the turtle which is offering during the ritual. There is an annual ritual between the changing of the year, and you see the turtle which is here and who will be eaten by the group. Vas-y. Voilà, the turtle is cut and partagé. Here it's a little dance how the woman came in trance. It's 2 years ago, this one. Huh? So this is inside the village.
The doctors are mainly men or also women?
It's both. The dancer are, but they don't enter in trance in the same way. The trance of the women are very, very hard. They knock the everywhere, and then it's very, very hard. The man is more supple. They are the special dancer. They have a name, City. You know, for instance, City is a Malay word. These girls are named City. That means sacred dancer. All the ritual names come from the Malay, not from Moken. Allez.
C'est presque fini, it's almost finished.
You speak topping.
Okay.
This is very similar in Thailand. Not only among the sea nomads, but among rural Thailand, that they have many media.
Like the dance are the same also.
No, the media who some spirits will enter into the body of those women. Yeah.
Not the
And
same, but
they
I tell you the
translate.
dance also after when they are in trance and they dance, it's like Lamrong or I don't know, I don't remember the name. It's the same. I show you, vas-y, je fais après. Voilà, but it is a reunion between the new. During this time, it's a discussion between the population and the spirit. They agree by offering, so we offer with that, but don't make us too bad. It's kind of an exchange, not too many dead, and you will have enough faring. So the shaman go in a cataleptic trance, and his double is going in the world beyond to find the message of the spirit. Voilà, this is the 43 boat. You can't see them. You see them behind. You see the small boat, but they are fishermen boat. But the 43 boat, when the Moken were hiding from the, this is what I call dissimulation. There is 43 Moken boat behind. And to find them in the 800 island is not an easy task. Now this is in the left, the ideal situation, 5 boats for the dry season and the 5 hours for the rainy season. And voilà, the flag means that it will be the time for the change. Okay. Voilà. So now there is no more boat, no more not-child boat, but strangely you can find not-child boat on the small boat going to see find water, or you know the notch out, which is an ideological specific Moken things to keep their own identity. That means the boat is a human body and you cannot do something else. You find it in the small boat. It does not disappear really. The boat disappears, the big boat, but you find it in the small boat. If there is dog, that means this is still hunting. So even if the Moken say it's finished, we are dying, everything is finished, the most important word is almost. They are almost finished, they are almost died, they are almost, but they never finish completely. Here on the right, it's because the northern part of the southern part of the archipelago, it's a military basis where the Moken live inside the military basis. On the north, the group live in a missionary basis. And of course, they forbid them to make spirit pole. So they do this. And if you read, this is the whole story of what is the world beyond for the Moken. You can find here, voila, the lamps, you know, the big lamp, comment on appelle ça, là, la grande lampe, là.
Big lamp, laquelle Big lamp. Ah, Maxime est là. Big lamp.
The lamp is the divinity. Here on the back is by phone, you send back the bad spirit. Bad spirit is here, that the black puppy, which are the military, which have been changed by the shaman, and there is and so on and so on. And here you have the beach. There is a story, the whole story of the world beyond the Moken when they are forbidden to make the spirit work. They always find a way. That's why I call them, like the historians do, the interstice people. They always find an interstice to make their own ceremony, even if their boat disappears, the notch out does not disappear, and so on and so on. They always find a way. You see down, it's now the new one.
Is that the coconut, and those photos are photos
coconut
of
is for the nut of the Burmese nut.
Burmese nut. And how about the photos?
The nut special as a genie of the Moken, of the Burmese. They are special spirit of the Burmese. So it's a little Burmanization also. There is syncretism. It's a lot of story. You can write a nice thing. Vas-y, pass. Rien. Well, this is how we do the mental map. Maxime is here, so I did it with him. Everybody is working on it, 4 of us. It's a huge work. As I tell you, we went to north from south and we take the toponym. First thing we notice is the Moken, like the sea, do that. And they did it with us. And they show us. And they even took the computer to tell us we were wrong here. We show the right mountain, not the wrong one. They were very, very impliqué. Involved in this story. And Fabienne and Jean, the other one, make an exhibition on the island to show the result of what the these maps, we call it the map of the social space, show on the archipelago. That means here is the beach of this, here is the island of that, the island of the, I don't speak French anymore, sail, is a sailing, and here you have Las Jalai. We find out that the island, all the island, are the main important thing in the island are the mountains. It's not the sea, it's not the lagoon, it's not the, it's a mountain. The mountains are the first elder to be prey on the island. That means each mountain represents a divinity, a kind of divinity. And in the foot of this divinity, you find the spirit pole. And after the spirit pole, you find the sea, and the sea with a canal. And you have to cross the canal to go to the cemetery. So in fact, there is a complex which is very strict, and it's involved everything, the mountain, the littoral, you have to cross it to go to the cemetery. And so there is free spirit pole, one for the mountain, one for the littoral, and one for the sea. So they need all the space. And voilà. When this is Maxime doing the mental map, the cartography of the social space. And the Moken are very interesting. And me, I am out because computer and me. Voilà, pass. Voilà. So this is, you know, all the point we make. Attends, you see all the point we were with Maxime and with each time a Moken of the local place, and we knitted this one with story, with this and that. And then we report them. Voilà, you can see the travel we made. Vas-y, va après.
Ça c'est le travel, et ça, ok.
Après. And then after we enter that in an inventory, which our web designer, non, pas l'avant, voilà. So each village, each place, elle veut pas, hein.
Ah bah si, mais...
Voilà, celle-là. Each place, each village, each place, etc. It's written. So you will have all the story of, it's a very big, it's only an example of what we have done. So every place will be linked to the myth, to the resources, to the people who disappear, because we have the spirit pool of people who disappear. So we have a lot of data to the myth, which refer to the food you cannot eat to this place and so on. So all this link, we want them to be put on the corpus, and then we will be vision. We will have a vision of the one world of the Moken, but we want the Moken to work with them on that. It's the myth, how the going, and so on. Well, so there is a lot of work to do, and we did not finish. So you can, voilà. So you can have all the, so this is, you see this the old lady, we recorded last year. She is called the ancestor of the tin, because she used to be a little girl when the Japanese arrived in the lower Burma, and she remembered, and she told us the story, which is quite terrible. And here it was in my time, the first time I went in to see the Moken, that was 82. And there was things like that. It was like monster would eat the littoral for tin. It was absolutely destroyed. The littoral you can see in southern Thailand now is beautiful. In 80, it was a desert. It was desert. There is nothing. They had to rebuild it. And the Moken with the L helped to rebuild this. But it was destroyed by this kind of machine. And when you find a big industry, you always find nearby this big industry, Moken. If it's tin, you will find Moken. If it's another industry, you will find Moken as well, but not in the center. They will make like, you know, Alabate, the tin.
In the upper photo, is that the tin mine?
Yes, that's a tin mine who eat the littoral and they treat the land and they keep the
It is in the sea or on land?
No, it's the sea and they devour the littoral. That's why there was no more beach. Ranong is destroyed. There is no beach in Ranong.
So the Moken dive, in order to dig.
Stay around, and they just take their small bate, to take a little bit of tin. They never work in a big company. They just work around big. Like the state, they are never in the center. They are always outside. Like Scott say, they are the people of the out, not in the state. They are out of the state and they are out of the center of the enterprise, but they are always there. So you can find this. Allow me, for instance, Robien, to cross the story of this old woman, 90, I don't know how much, with the arrival of the Japanese and how there was an alliance between the Indian there. We were working with the English, and the Indian were very kind with the Moken to help them to survive, because the Moken were looked at by the Japanese like game. They killed them like game because they have no clothes. So this lady was always talking about clothes, and the Japanese forbid them to have clothes by nature. That means the comment une feuille? Oh, no.
The leaves?
Well, a leaf. You cannot take a leaf to protect you. So all the Moken wanted a piece of tissue or anything to cover their genital. And if they have not, the Japanese kill them. When I told that to the NGO, they don't want to understand. Anyway, go. So here you cross history and Moken oral history, for instance. Well, Moken tin mining, and so we went there. So we went to the camps where the Moken were put in, and we find where they were working and where was the bombing of the Indian, and the Indian helped the Moken, and we give them some things to eat. So there was a new way of strategy to survive during the.
Is the term lumpy a Moken's term? Lumpy.
Lubby.
Do they also call lumpy?
No, it's lubby in Moken. It's lubby.
Lubby.
Lumpy, I think it must be Malay. You ask Maxime, he will know better than me.
I believe it's come. I believe it comes from Lubby.
You see the canal, as I show you. The Moken village is here. Non, en bas, descend.
Ah oui.
Voilà. Moken village is here. Cemetery is in front. And here you have the big island. So you have the free state. Voilà. Follow? Non.
Mais non, mais ça, tu veux pas parler de ça.
Voilà. Okay. Voilà, this is what to show what was before and what we are trying to do now. And I finish there.
No.
Non?
No.
Mais non, j'ai dit qu'on ne mettait pas. Non, c'est trop tard, j'ai trop parlé déjà. You see, voilà, this is the kind of thing that Maxime, which is here, kind with the cartography of the social space, you can find. Now we understand the way how the whole circle of life, death, and people works. So you have the mountains, and then you have the life, you have the canal, you have to cross the canal when you are dead, so you have to do so on, and then you become a dolphin, or you become and so on and so on. So you can find how the environment is done for a living. You can take resources, they are named, you don't abuse it, everybody know where you can find it, they want to divide it, but in the same place, you have another order, which is, we call it the world beyond, but for the Moken, it's the same place. So you have to make it in their mind when they dive, for instance, and they find a cavern, for instance, it's a cavern. The cavern can lead you to another world. It's very close. That means in a few meters, you can be in another reality. Voilà, on va arrêter là.
De toute façon, c'est...
This is the last boat, last Moken boat. I wanted to buy it, but...
The island or the boat?
Both.
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 Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Never mind. I think you start to know my discussion. So Chou, I was very interested with what you say, and I think there is link between your Rangsuku, who is really, really sound in my mind, like the Moken and strategies, number, division, and looking at the sea and playing with the different communities there, and so on and so on. Make me believe that we are exactly with the same people, having the same ideology, and be separate for a few hundred years, but I am sure they came from the same place, but we have to be a little more specific and work on that a little bit. So if you don't mind, we will exchange a little bit more. I will send you some paper. Do not hesitate to criticize. I don't like it, of course, but I will accept it for you, no problem. And please do that, and send me some of yours, and we try to exchange, because I am sure there is something between these two persons. When Sather will be here, we try to fix something together with him also, because he has a wider view of that.
So you will join us today? Sather can join us today?
Yes. Huh?
While waiting for him, I have some
No, he
points
could
to ask.
Sather. He just
Maxime.
just send a message.
Hello.
That he cannot.
No.
Salut, Maxime.
Okay. Welcome. He can escape from the
You did not hear Chou. It was very interesting. What he said is the Moken of Singapore is very interesting. But I will tell you. Thank you, Achan, to be there again for us, like ever.
No, I would like to have some points with Chou.
Again?
Stop
you know everything already.
Okay, I have some points to raise with Chou. Here you can hear me, Chou, right? I have 3 points. I'm very interested in your presentation. I'm a sociologist, so I joined some of the interests. The first one about the idea of the strategy of sharing and helping. This is more or less related to Scott's idea of Gotong Royong, that people can be mobilized in terms of helping each other. But that's for the Malay, right? The Malay ideology. But in your analysis, the Moken or the Suku Laut also use this strategy in order to help with each other. But on top of that, you mentioned about sharing. And I think this can be a new hypothesis that you can go further. How far learning from the Malay on one hand, or develop that system of helping on their own, and how that can move further into the sharing. Okay, into the sharing. I think that can be a point that in our book we can talk about how the Morgans or the Xenomorphs learning from all the
ideologies. That means it is the basement of their analysis. Yes, you're right.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. What they are doing during their trajectory to the current place in Riau or in Myanmar or Thailand. Okay. So that's the first point. My second point will be about the motherland. Although there were fewer islands in Riau than in Mercury Archipelago, but do they have the same system that some big island with the mountain will be the mother island, and all Suku Laut would go there for the ceremony, or go there for pay homage to their ancestor? Is that the same?
Not quite the same, although some of them, I mean, they might recognize, certain places, as I said, to be owned by spirits and things like that. But there is no like annual pilgrimage to any particular island. But some of them do talk about, a Raja Laut, meaning
Raja Laut. We have Raja Laut.
Down south in the Lingga areas, but this is not consistent with all Orang Suku Laut. Some of them talk about that, and some of them don't talk about that, but they don't make any sort of special journeys there.
Mm-hmm. So I would like to relate the idea of mother island to resources. When Jacques mentioned about big mountain, island with big mountain, I think that's a source of soft water, right? Which is very important for them, that they need to have water to drink. So
Maxime?
Yes.
I asked him if we check if there is water on the mother island, on the bigger.
There is systematically fresh water on Mother Island, which is, I believe, one of the reasons they choose these as mother islands, and why the Burmese also come to the Moken places is also because there is fresh water, because they're protected from the monsoon, and so on and so on.
Thank you. My last point will be about the multiple identity that Cynthia mentioned. You said that this is a way of resistance from the Indonesian authority. So some of them may choose not to become Indonesian, to remain, I don't know, stateless or mobile people. This is a point that I'm interested, because my paper will be on citizenship. And for that, you also mentioned identities in terms of religion, right? Because some choose to be Christian, some choose to be Buddhist or Chinese, Confucianism. So with that, do you mean that by multiple identities that can cover the formal status that they belong to a nation state, and how they belong to belief groups, and even belong to among themselves, any particular? Can you make it, at least I can hear three, right? Three types of belonging that they can feel.
They can, I mean, the multiple identities range from, like, the religious identification. So today they can say I'm Muslim, and then tomorrow say I'm Christian, and I say,
the same person.
The same person. And I did not have time to elaborate that. And so, the point that I was making about how they say that, paper certificates can fall into the sea. So for example, if you have a certificate today that says that you are Muslim, but then if it falls into the sea, you can change your identity. So the next day you can say you are, Christian. So many of the Orang Laut that, I was interviewing, they have changed religions pretty easily, and also they would change religions in the sense that if missionaries come in and offer some kind of aid, they don't want to lose out on getting whatever is brought in, and they can just change their, identity.
This is very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, the identity. Then also the other thing which I didn't have time to elaborate is also about the identity. In the past, the Orang Suku Laut were divided into subgroups in different sukus. So in the time of the Malay Kingdom, the different sukus were assigned different kinds of feudal duties by the Malay sultans. And these feudal duties could be things like looking after dogs or, rowing the sultan's boat and things like that. And then you were ranked, so the sukus were ranked as to what kind of task they did, whether they're higher or whether they're lower in the hierarchy. So when the Orang Suku Laut, the Orang Suku Laut are not homogeneous. So they also within themselves, have rival groups. So then they would always accuse each other of being, a lower suku or something. So sometimes, they can say, oh, I'm suku Galang, which is a very high status one. And then the other group can say, no, you are not. You're suku Tambus, you're the lower. These days, what is also quite interesting is that they may not necessarily talk so much in terms of, what kind of suku identification they are, that was defined in the times of the old Malay Kingdom. Nowadays, sometimes they talk about whether you are Protestant Christian or whether you are Roman Catholic Christian, and whether the Protestant Christian is higher than the Roman Catholic Christian or not. So they take on these new forms of identification, then they put it into their own system too.
To my ignorance, Riau is in Indonesia, right?
Yeah, so Riau is in Indonesia, but Riau historically was part and parcel of a wider Malay world. And this wider Malay world right now covers no less than 5 nation states, Brunei, Singapore, Malaysia, south of Thailand, and Indonesia. All of these was one huge, Malay world. And all these new nation states that we talk about, the borders and boundaries have been, in that sense, very recent compared to the long history of the Malay world. So that's why, they talk about the Malay world, and they have relatives, in what would now be in Malaysia, or, Singapore or South Thailand. But all these borders and boundaries constructed by the current nation states makes it difficult for them to cross over. But, they, as I said,
they always find a way to do that.
Of bribing, or
maybe they wait sometimes a few years, and then they find a way. Like Ajahn Supang would explain that the nationality they give to the Moken in Thailand, they get it the Myanmar in citizenship, so that means they have double citizenship. And in fact, the problem is never resolved. You cannot resolve a nomadic problem. It's impossible. You settle them down in a camp, and that's all you can do. No. That's why I like the term interstice. Whatever they will find a little place of fit. They all one will be the Christian something, one they will be the lower one, and the other one. But they always be Suku, and they will find a way, and then the other one will go.
So from listening to Cynthia and to Jacques' presentation, I got some idea that in the book that we plan to work together, there may be a chapter that we can synthesize what we learn from each presentation, and for that we can make a kind of new findings. Okay,
Yeah,
new findings.
like,
How those people,
like, how to deal with border, with interstice, how to way to sneak out of everything and to take advantage of everything that the government give you. They are the lowest of the lowest, but still they keep the best for them, and then they use it. The Tsuku is the same, Moken is the same. Let's see with the Sather if it's the same. Playing with border. How you play with border? The Moken are the best ones. Tsuku can play with whatever they want. Christianity, Islam.
Fabian would like to say something.
Yes, it's super. I have a very naive question, but I would like to question hierarchy and authority. I mean, in the Moken world as well as in the Orang Suku Laut. Could you tell me more about that? Is there any hierarchy or what kind of authority in in those groups? Do we have? I have the feeling maybe I was wrong about hierarchy in the Moken world, or so. Could you be clear? Hein? La hiérarchie. La hiérarchie.
Ah, hiérarchie, pardon.
Hiérarchie, hierarchy. Yeah. So
Cynthia?
is it because people talk about egalitarianism, solidarity, blah, blah, blah. So I would like to be clear about authority and hierarchy and compare the two people, the two.
Cynthia?
Okay, shall I go first?
Yes.
Yeah. So in terms of hierarchy, okay, in the time of the Malay world, as I said, the Orang Suku Laut were divided into different sukus, right? So there's suku Tambus, suku Galang. Okay, so suku Tambus would be those who were put in charge of looking after the dogs, and the suku Galang were the ones who were in charge of like being the warriors for the Sultan. So the suku Galang, were ranked as higher in status, and then the suku Tambus were lower in status. Now, what is interesting to note is that those suku that were further away, from the sultans and in the more isolated islands, they might have been ranked as lower in status, but then they had a lot more autonomy and they enjoyed a lot more freedom, okay, than those who were so-called, ranked higher in that kind of status. Yeah. Now, of course, the Malay Sultanate, in Indonesia and all doesn't prevail anymore. So in terms of the Orang Suku Laut themselves, it's a egalitarian arrangement. Okay, men and women are equal. Okay, so when they go out, for example, to fish, yes, there's sometimes the men would stand in front of the boat and they would spear, and the women would be the ones to row the boat into place for the men to spear. But that does not mean to say that the men are higher status than the women, right? So when the men, for example, explain, they would say that it's really complementary division of labor, right? So that you need the women just as much to be able to row the boat into place for them to be able to fish. And so both kinds of labor are just as important as the other. And they also say that the women are just as good spearers of fish, too, if they want to do it. So they say that, in terms of divorce, the woman is just as capable of being able to look after herself. Now, in terms of authority, that becomes also a very interesting question, because now, from whose perspective are you talking about authority? So the state, in going into Orang Suku Laut communities may appoint a certain person to be the head, of the community. Okay, and usually they would try to look for whoever's the one who has some kind of education, but many of them have never received any kind of education. So if they can like find somebody who's able to read a little bit or write a little bit, they sort of appoint that person to be the representative of that community. Okay, but then on an everyday level, that person may not necessarily be recognized as the head of the community. Rather, it's really on the everyday level, it's who has the greatest hold of supernatural powers. Something which I wasn't able to elaborate in my papers, but this whole thing which is about ilmu, right? So ilmu, well, in the Western world, we divide between magic and we divide between scientific knowledge. But the word ilmu is derived from
how you spell it, please?
Yeah.
ILMU, yeah, which really
ILM
ILMU.
ilmu.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, which actually means knowledge, and there's no division between supernatural knowledge, divine knowledge versus scientific knowledge. All of it is recognized as knowledge. And this is really, really important, in the Orang Suku Laut as to who, possesses the most powerful kind of ilmu. And this ilmu can be good ilmu, for example, to have the ilmu to be able to deliver babies, or the ilmu to be able to communicate with spirits, okay, or the ilmu to sort of heal people. So this is where, they would recognize who has the greatest esteem, has a lot to do with who is in possession of that powerful ilmu. So that's why, when you talk about hierarchy and we talk about authority, it's whose perspective are you looking at? There are different levels, because whether you are looking at the ones which have been put into place by the state apparatus, or whether what is happening, on the ground.
Okay.
Same for the Moken.
The ilmu is like a shaman, right? Like a shaman.
Yeah, but we have a problem, and I have one of my director who don't stop saying that. He said, you say the Moken are egalitarian population, but you have a hierarchy during the ceremony. That's right. We have a shaman, you have the assistant, you have this and that. For 3 or 4 days in the year, you have a strict, very strict hierarchy. Nobody can say a word against the shaman. Nobody. And every word is very decouped. The assistant of the shaman, everything, everybody have a role. But after that, the shaman is really treated like a dog. You mean you profit for 3 days, now you give back everything. How many bottles do you get? How many meats do you keep? And so on and so on and so on. So he is treated like a dog for a few days because he profits for a few days of his power to get involved with the spirit and get this power to make the exchange between man and spirit. But he pay it, voilà, because he break the egalitarian position. And of course, for all the people, the Burmese or the Thai, they always choose the man who can write a role, but they choose the elder one, which is always the shaman, or what we call the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, because there is always somebody in the Moken group who is bilingual or who can speak 3 languages, which is the first one to go and meet the person. In fact, everybody thinks he is the leader. In fact, no. But he plays like he is the leader. And after a while, if they want to settle, for instance, a real village, they have to choose a chief of the village before Burmese or Thai came, and they take the potao. Potao means old man. That means people of knowledge. So the potao is chosen to be the representative of the Moken. And generally, this Potao is the shaman.
Thank you.
T'as vu, hein? I know how to be short.
Yes, thank you. We are dead. Because for us it's 4:30.
And what about between the different Moken groups? I think there are no hierarchy per se, but I mean, they always, for instance, they think the Moken in the north because they are closer to the current or more involved in a kind of sorcery. Is there any kind of hierarchy among the different Moken groups? Like,
I think, I am thinking. Yes, there is, because in the north there is a longer presence of the Burmese there, and they put 3 villages, if my memory is good, on the beach, and 1 village was a Moken village with a chief of the village, and there was a real chief of the village who was not a Potao, but a man who is willing to work with Burmese. I don't know in the south, in the Navy bases where the Moken live. But the only thing, the only place I know where there is not a Potao, at the beginning, when the English said, we give land at the island to the Moken because they help them, they decide to vote. And they vote for a representative, and this representative was a shaman. So since that, it was always a shaman, except for the Northern Island where the Burmese came first, where it was somebody who was paid by the Burmese to control the Moken. Well.
On this, if we have time, I would like to raise the issue of the belief. I saw in some photos that the Moken or the Orang Orang Suku, they have the totem, right? They have the totem in wooden totem. This is Austronesian, and wonder whether this is an interaction, cultural interaction during their mobility, or this is
apparently
dated back to their
don't have that. Apparently the Suku, they have only Batu, Pierre, comment on dit Pierre? Stone, no? That's what you say, Chou, no? There is stone who are sacred stone, and but no spirit pole in wood.
No.
I saw 2 pieces in wood in southern Thailand. I can share with you later.
Oh yes, of course.
So
Up
maybe
Thailand, that's right.
a kind of borrowing.
After this is empty place, is a terra incognita. We have to go.
But from what I heard, Orang Suku Laut, they don't build poles. They don't. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
No altar, nothing.
Only sacred rocks, or yeah.
But in fact, in Singapore, you have a rainy season and a dry season.
Yeah. If I can sort of go back to Fabienne's point, they may also sometimes, because they may have certain things in which they may cast some kind of spells onto these things, and that endows those things with supernatural powers. But then they also believe that there are certain things which have inherent supernatural powers. So you don't even need to cast any spells on it, and they already have some kind of power. And if you cast spells onto it, it only enhances that inherent power that it has. So for example, when I, was in the field and established, very good, strong relations with them, right? And after that first stretch of field work, when I was leaving the place, one of the Orang Suku Laut women who had so-called adopted me in the field, she gave me a stone, a little, stone about this size. And she said that it was something that had inherent power, so that if, no matter where I am in the world, if I rubbed it, on my eyes, I would be able to feel that connection with her. So they do have these things. So, sometimes certain shells,
it's more than a connection between people and the thing. And
right.
Is there any bomo of some kind? Because the Moken have bomo, Malay bomo for healer.
In the field areas that I worked in, they call these dukun. So
Dukun, ouais, le dukun.
Yeah, dukun. So whoever has special sort of supernatural powers to be able to do healing or communicate with the spirits and all of that.
Do they have other?
And I'm sorry, you probably had some words about it already, but what is their belief system? Is it like the Moken based on ancestors, or?
Okay, so their belief system is animistic in the sense that they would see certain things as out in the landscape or seascape as having supernatural powers and all of that. And as I was telling the group, of course these days they are being pressured to take on one of the state recognized religions, but usually this is only just by name. And even if they take on these so-called formal faiths, in reality they could be using the same holy days to do their own rituals. Yeah, things like that.
Another strategy.
Right.
Okay, good.
That's really good.
Well, but that was very nice to hear you. A conclusion speaking, Madame le Professeur.
No, I have nothing to say now. Thank you. I cannot follow. I cannot compete with you, Jacques.
No, you can, of course, compete with me.
In speaking.
We will stop this competition now.
Right. Jacques is unique for this.
Oh, okay.
But
I will conclude by saying that very. You see, you want to conclude. I said you conclude.
No, I just would like to propose a system that when we raise hand, the speaker will allow. Otherwise, Fabian will never be able to talk.
Thank you.
Bon, Fabienne, do the conclusion.
No. I'm just invited. I'm not a speaker.
And you ask question to Chou, so that means you are involved in the story also. No, but we don't need that because we made it. I was very happy to hear you, Chou, and I was hoping for that, and it was beyond my espérance. And so thank you very much for what you said, and I hope we will see you and exchange very soon after this webinar. We wait if there is another connection, and then try to put the missing link within our webinar, our second webinar. In fact, thank you very much. I feel relief that the Orang Suku Laut are so close at the Moken, even if the Moken are a little bit stronger. But no, okay. Thank you very much for waiting and to support this webinar organization, which was not so easy. Huh? So we see you next time, Maxime, c'est quand? When
Next
is that?
week.
Next time?
Next week.
Next week, and Maxime,
Thursday.
Your presentation will be next week or after that?
No, there's the third one. So in 2 weeks.
Do we need to adjust the time?
No, it will be okay for me because in daytime, I mean, so far there is no internet cut.
Okay. 2 o'clock in the morning again?
Just wait for the morning now.
So the next sessions will be a bit more Europe time friendly. Because for Europe it will be in the morning and in the afternoon
No,
in
that's not
Southeast
friendly
Asia.
in the morning. If it's 5
But
o'clock,
in
it's not friendly.
In the US, it will be, I think, in the middle of the night. I mean, if Cynthia, you want to join
Yeah.
the next session.
Please.
That's right. I was just looking and
Of the
making
night.
sure, but I would very much like to tune in.
Okay, so we try to be there. Okay. So thank you very much for Cynthia to have spoken. So we didn't, Sather unfortunately was not there, so we have time to speak.
Thank you.
We'll put Sather in another place, I don't know where. Okay. So
Okay,
goodbye
thank
and
you.
thank you very much
Thank
for
you.
everything.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you
Bye.
very
Au revoir,
much. Bye-bye.
professeur. Salut.
Au revoir,
Salut.
support.
Au revoir, le
Et
professeur.
bye-bye, Cynthia.